Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Willson SFL Kickoff Show Week 4 edition. Good things come to those who wait, Gerald. We're a little bit late tonight, but we're here now, and that's really all that matters.
Well, I ate a whole bunch of food. I had trouble buttoning my pants up
Yeah,
and getting my shirt
I don't
on.
know
I
why your
might bust
pants
a
were
button
off, but
later on.
you don't want to know what it was. I had to haul this heavy championship ring all the way into the studio, and it was slowing me down just a little bit, but we made it. We're here. I'm Mike Daggs. He's Gerald Smith. Behind the scenes, our production crew, Cameron Irvine and Ron Haynes. Appreciate you all being here for the Week 4 edition of the Willson SFL Kickoff Show. Excited to get Week 4 started. Week 3, man, what a way to start a week, huh? We made some money for the league. We sang songs. It was a song, but we formed a band. We got the Man Band.
The man band.
Yeah, going on tour. I can't remember where our
Holiday Inn Hotel in Sioux Falls. That's what.
somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, so who knows? Who knows what's ever going to happen any week at the SFL? But it started off singing "Happy Birthday" and it was a great time. But you also asked a question last week. You asked, about shutouts, because we had seen shutouts in weeks 1 and 2, and you said, man, are we going to see even more shutouts? And in the words of one of the greatest pieces of analysis ever in SFLM history, yes. Yes, we would see more shutouts because, listen, there was only one, but it was a surprising one. Lexington at Sin City. We picked that game, at least I picked Lexington. I thought Lexington would win. Not only did they not win, they looked great in weeks 1 and 2. Shut out 34-0.
And it wasn't even close. It was so bad, right? And we know, like Sin City took some of their players from Canton, right? As they moved, they looked like retro Canton from the 2 seasons prior. With the way the defense was dominant, they shut Lexington down and made them look bad.
There was a few teams that looked kind of bad. I don't want to just highlight the bad, but you want to also highlight the good. Vancouver Legion, 66 points scored, held Oklahoma City to only 3. And, Oklahoma City's still a relatively new roster, but 66 points.
And that's the Andy Hamilton we know and love, right? Put up stuff like that on a team that's bad, and they actually showed, hey, look, we're still here, even though they kind of struggled a little bit, in recent, past. But look, they come out swinging in week 3.
Speaking of coming out swinging in week 3, we had picked the Queen City Corsairs at Bossier City Steamers as our game of the week, and it was
far from.
It was anything but. We were wrong. We chose poorly. Bossier City just absolutely stomping the Corsairs. They had started out 2-0. They went into week 3 looking solid. They were looking strong, looking revitalized, and they also only put up 3 points, allowing Bossier City to put a 50 burger on the board. 52-3 the final in that one.
Look, and it was a couple of teams that we didn't expect to be exactly where they were at this stage, considering how they had played last season. But Bossier City kind of retooled everything. Their defense was looking really good. The offense is looking really good with Johnny Pickler and everything else they got going on there. So they made a pretty big statement.
Appreciate you all being here in the chat. I saw my mother in there earlier. We've got the Lakeman. We've got Frank Doom, Justin Reside, Wildfire Micro. I don't remember seeing that's a new name. So I'm new fans. I'll take new fans every week. Robert Henson here with it. Robert Henson, I'm sure, is curious on who my pick will be this week as the Mexico City Aztecs face Houston later on. Sure, he'll be wondering who could I be picking.
Of course.
A lot of other great games in week 3, but we've only got so much time. Week 4 is getting ready to get started, so we will keep right on going. Let's talk about this week 4 schedule. Bossier City gets a little break this week. So does Indianapolis and Oklahoma City. Those 3 teams will be on a bye. So if you're looking forward to watching them, you're going to have to wait till week 5. It's not going to happen this week. But coming up tonight, we've got a pair of games, both of which are starting at, the 8 o'clock block. That one kind of come and went. Let's call it the 9 o'clock block. So around 9 p.m., 40 minutes from now, well, it's only 8:20. We're not that
bad.
late. We're not
bad.
But we're going to have Chicago at Minnesota. And listen, it's a game that on paper right now, you think, man, Chicago's really struggling. Even Minnesota's kind of struggling. We'll break this game down in detail later on, but this is a rematch from last season when Chicago kind of did me a solid and beat Minnesota and helped in that little, that whole rankings at the end situation. Give me a little bit better seed because of that. So yeah, we're gonna see what they can do this season. It's a whole different season, whole different animal. But we'll get into that one a little bit later on. Also in that 8 o'clock block, we've got Los Angeles at the DC Dragons. Chad Rowland and Ramos Lynn on the call together. That should be a great call as well. That's the only games on Friday. On Saturday, we've got a couple more starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Nashville at Arizona. Colin and Rick on the call. Looking forward to that one. Washington at Sin City with Alex West and John Warren will be in that same block at 6:45 at 9 p.m. We've got Mike O'Neill and DJ Kilgate. And Mike O'Neill doing some play-by-play this week.
It's gonna be really interesting.
Yeah.
Look, and we know he's one of the one that actually made like microphones like this famous when he used to be on the show doing it and doing his thing. So we're gonna see how he does and play with it. It's gonna be interesting. That's definitely one game I'm gonna listen to for sure.
Yeah, Charleston at Florida is the game that they're calling. That one's at the 9 o'clock block at 9:15. We've got Albuquerque at Queen City. Albuquerque still looking just red hot this season. Queen City coming off that pretty trouncing loss. We'll see how they bounce back. Tyler Falk, Brett Solberg on the call together. On Sunday, we get things kicked off early in the afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time. Mexico City at Houston. Michael Chirillo and Mickey Melillo on the call. It's the littlest booth ever.
And the thing about it is, like, I don't think it's an accident that you get the professional to come out and actually call the champions game of the week 4.
I don't know what you're implying.
You know exactly what I'm implying. But look, hey, I can't fault it for it. Why not have the only professional that we actually have as part of our crew call a champions game in week 4 if he can make it?
It was total coincidence. Denver at Lexington in that same block. Cameron Duty and Mike O'Neill on call number 2 for him this week at 1:15. Denver Lexington at finishing up that 1 o'clock time frame. 6:30 p.m. We've got Vancouver at Atlanta with Jacob Clear and Anthony Ellison, a couple of Charleston guys calling the game together. I know they were excited to get in the booth together. And then at 6:45, Baltimore at Pittsburgh with Eric Vinson and Wade Phillips back in the booth. I think the first time this season.
Yeah, and we haven't heard him like you said in a long while. So it'd be good to hear him back in the booth as well.
Then, of course, we've got This Week in the SFL on Monday night at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by Carolina at Fort Worth for the Monday night spectacular with Cameron Irvine and Charles Doherty. So great week of action lining up. What game are you looking forward to the most?
Well, obviously, I'm looking forward to like our game of the week that we actually are going to talk about here in just a little bit. But one that I think is going to be really interesting is going to be that Vancouver Atlanta game.
Yeah.
Right. Vancouver coming off a really, really big, win like they had against OKC. But Atlanta, I think this game is going to tell us where they really sit and what we're looking at them, doing for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So let's talk about what we think is our game of the week this week. We chose absolutely terrible last week on our game of the week. Let's see if we can do better. And we're not always going to go with the sexy pick, the one that people think might be the most obvious. In fact, even when you proposed this one, I was like, you sure about that? But listen, there is actually a good matchup here. Denver at Lexington. Lexington coming off getting shut out. But they looked really good in weeks 1 and 2. Denver, they've also looked good a couple of the weeks this season. So this is the 7th meeting between these two teams. The previous meetings were when Lexington was the Tulsa Desperados. Denver has had their number. 5 out of 6 of those wins have gone Denver's way. Both of these teams started off 2-0 this season, but then they both lost in week 3. For Lexington, they surprisingly took down Baltimore 21-17 in the season opener. But then they shut out Oklahoma City 23-0 in week 2. I mean, looked even better, arguably. Week 3, that's when they got shut out themselves, 34-0 against Sin City. So it's like came crashing back down to earth. For Denver, speaking of shutouts, they shut out the Carolina Skyhawks 16-0 to open up the season, followed by a 23-6 win over Chicago in week 2. But one of these teams is going to get back on track tonight. One of them is going to win, not tonight. One of these teams is going to get back on track this weekend. And the other will drop their second straight after that 2-0 start. Lexington, they are back home after the last 2 on the road. First game back since taking down the mighty Vultures. And Denver, they're red hot even after a 2-point loss to Washington. They're looking to keep things going here. Talk about Denver and their offense.
See, look, Denver sits at 2-1, right? And they took their first loss last week, as you just mentioned, with a close one. And they had an opportunity to tie it up with about 3 minutes left, but they failed to convert the 2-point conversion during that game. Then the game just got away from it as time dwindled away. I don't think that there's any panic in the Mile High City right now. I do think that they feel really good about what they have going on. They have been consistent since week one, right? And have looked really, really sharp at times, right? They're doing really, really good things. The offense is led by the running game with running backs Bailey O'Shaughnessy and Go Revs, Dwayne Salmons in the backfield, who collectively had the league's 5th best rushing attack. The passing game was about middle of the road, but this offense has the 3rd fewest turnovers in the league up to this point. When you aren't turning the ball over, good things tend to happen. You're not giving those possessions away. You don't have to worry about things getting kind of all out of sorts. Look, they will eventually open up the pass, and when it happens, this could be a very, very dangerous offense to watch, right? Because we already know, look, they're 5th best in rushing. They can open up that passing game and kind of get a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah.
I think it's something that teams are going to have to watch out for.
And that's, a lot of teams talk about is they use the run to set up the pass, right? And, they're kind of playing the long game at it, using the run over the first few games to try to set up the pass down the road. But, to your point, once they can start hitting their stride in both of those pieces, it's going to be a really dangerous team, especially because their defense, no slouches there either. Arguably, that's one of the main reasons why they're sitting at 2-1 through 3 weeks.
Right, look, and they rank 9th in total defense, 3rd in rush defense. They only allow 67 yards on the ground per game to this point. 2nd in scoring difference. They're not giving up a whole lot of points. Number 1 in takeaways, extremely important. So guess what?
Oh, yeah.
When you're not turning the ball over at all, right? And guess what that turns into? They're not turning the ball over, but they're taking it away. Best in the league right now. They have their team number 1 in turnover differential. Not to mention, they know how to rush the quarterback. They're 3rd in sacks defensively across the league right now. So, and then on top of that, they have 3 defensive backs in Parker Thomas, which I know Eddie Gay is probably the best slot corner this league has ever seen. And you have Luke Schreiner and Ted Haynes coming in. They each have 2 interceptions after 3 games this season. So they're doing – look, and they're not the only ones, right? They got a couple of guys that, also on the back end and linebacker area that have an interception apiece. And even Tank Bennett himself, Go Revs, right, has a pick himself playing on the back end. So, look, and it's been pretty impressive to watch. So, look, they are playing like a championship-type defense. I say that with confidence. Why? Because they've won championships.
They have.
Under this same ownership.
Yeah.
And guess what they have? One of their best seasons they had that they've actually had a head coach in Michael Goodman, who is now back with the team after stepping away for a little while.
Right.
Jeremy Vega brought him back in and says, hey, we need to win more games. We need you back. He brought him back, and look what they're doing right now. Now, if they can continue that type of play, I really do think they could be potentially looking at the playoffs. I know it's way too early.
It is.
But guess what? If they win this game right here against what I think is a pretty good Lexington team, it's gonna just open a few eyes of a lot of people across the league.
And they've come a long way since last season when you described them as
I did
a homeless person jumping in a dumpster looking for treasure and unable to find it
and coming up empty.
Yeah, that's what it was.
They've found something in that dumpster and they were prepared to.
They found their old coach apparently.
Apparently, it works. Hey, look, you get him where you can find him.
He's back, and they're doing great things. Lexington, on the other hand, they're doing great things too. Minus that shutout. I mean, they came out of the gate swinging. They looked so good against Baltimore. They looked good against Oklahoma City, but now you kind of look back at that Oklahoma City game, and you're like, was it just because it was Oklahoma City? Talk about Lexington and what they've got going on.
Right, look, and like you mentioned, right, they come out of the gate swinging. Look, and I didn't expect much of them last season, and they proved me wrong. I haven't expected much of them this season as well. And they're coming out and they came out the gate swinging. They beat a Baltimore team was 5-time champion. Then they turned around and followed up by shutting out OKC, like you said. Not a very good team. It's very likely the worst team in the league.
Yes.
But looked really, really bad against a winless at the time, I believe, Sin City team. But we know what Sin City could be, especially back to the Canton days.
Yeah, they lost. They were 0-2 going into that.
And I don't mean this in the worst way at all. So don't hate me. But nothing really impresses me about the team. But one thing that they do, they just know how to win more games than they lose.
Right.
And they've proven it since last season, and they're doing it again this season. They have a ton of talent on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, they definitely do. It's a team that perennially they're kind of above average, but close to average, and it's like that's kind of what you expected out of them, But I don't know. This season it looked different, and now it didn't. It's just so hard to get a read.
Yeah, and it's and offensively, they have Gabriel Money Manning, who's a wide receiver, and he's a threat at returning, in any kick. He actually has a punt return for a touchdown this season. And Phoenix Jones, who you know really well from his time, because these are studs who can carry an offense, but they're only averaging 14 points per game after 3 games. I just don't think it's enough offensively for them to get going. They're going to have to find something that's going to get them back in. And on defense, look, and they have loads of talent there as well. They, with 8
all-stars all across the board.
All-stars, 8 of them. And look, and countless nods each of them have. So
Boogeyman at linebacker.
That's what I'm saying. And it's led by the boogeyman himself, Tony Roberto, right? Look, and watch games from them all, and he's all over the field. And he got an all-star nod last season. So he leads the team in sacks and TFLs. And their third down defense allows over 50% conversion on third down, so they got to shore that up. They have the tools to win consistently, but can they continue to win consistently is the question.
Yeah, it really is the question, and it's something that I guess will be answered on Sunday afternoon as they host Denver. At least they're playing at home. That's one more, thing on their side in this particular game, but. We'll see which way it goes. This is one where even when I was going to make the pick, it was like, man, they both started off hot and then not so much. When you really start to compare these two teams, though, Denver overall is playing better football right now. Team-wise, they lead in pretty much every stat
and they've been consistent throughout. Even though they lost last week, they still played well. Lexington just looked bad last week.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to the next segment. We've got our first player spotlight. We'll start off with offense like we always do. Our offensive player spotlight of the week. And listen, don't you shake your head at me. Don't you shake your head at me. I get there's only so much I can do. If we host a show and we have to pick the offensive player of the week, and that player happens to be on my team, I can't help it.
I feel like you're shoving in our face. You got a championship ring on your finger now.
This little thing?
It's been in my face since I showed up in the studio.
Yeah.
And
I got special lighting just to make it glow.
Shoving Jordan Sipe down my throat right
Mexico
now.
City quarterback Jordan Sipe. That is my player of the week. Roll that clip from Mr. Ron Haynes. Listen, the stat line might not impress you, but let's use that eye test that you talk about. Watch that game. 17 of 31 for 206 yards, like it says. Only 55% completion percentage. But watch these throws. He throws that one, just an absolute laser beam into the end zone. 3 different receiving touchdowns to 3 different targets in this game. In a critical 3rd and long situations, he did this. Watch this right here. He would convert using his legs. 3 different times he would convert 3rd and longs by running the ball himself and keeping the drive alive. 44 rushing yards, including those 3 rushes to convert on 3rd down. And look at this, 3rd down and 5 in the final 2-minute drill, trying to get it down into the end zone to take the lead, converts on that pass, gets right back to the line. Arguably, that was the best play that he had of the game. Except this, watch this right here to take the lead. 18 seconds to go in the game, getting the passing touchdown to Noe Terrazas. The fans love him. The team loves him. Jordan Sipe just getting it done for the Aztecs last week. The Aztecs got down 13-0 early in that game, and it was the play of Jordan Sipe paired with Ray Bentley. But Jordan Sipe able to get that ball out to 3 different targets, doing things different ways to try to get the ball into the end zone, get the touchdowns, keep the drives going by using his legs. Those are the sorts of characteristics that help build a Hall of Fame resume. Sipe is currently he's one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the league in all-star points. That's something that we're able to track now on a week-by-week basis. And if the season were to end today, as they say, it'd be a really short season, but if it did, he'd get the all-star nod right now. He's been in the league for several seasons now, and he's in his 6th season, but he has not yet made an all-star game. He's playing at that all-star level right now. He's 4th in completion percentage, 6th in passing touchdowns, only 1 interception on the season, which he started with last week. That's how he opened up the game. He threw himself an interception. And then he said, "You know what? I got to get things turned around. We're going to actually go out there and play at an all-star level." Now he is in his sixth season. He's looking for that first all-star nod. He'll almost certainly pass 15,000 yards this week against Houston as he looks to bring the Aztecs their first 3-0 start. Get this, since season 17. You know, we may have won the championship back in. I hope this isn't clicking too loud on my microphone. I'll stop.
He's not gonna stop.
I'll stop in season 24. This is my season. Oh, I mean season 25, unless we win again. Anyway, I'll continue. But yeah, season 17 was the last time the Aztecs started 3-0, and they've got an opportunity to do that now, thanks to the play of quarterback Jordan Sipe.
And I can't disagree because he was one of the ones that passed the eye test last week. I was actually watching that game, and I remember when all that hurry up stuff was happening. And he got you down, guys down in field range. I'm like, yeah, we just need to run the ball. I'm like, why are they actually hurrying up right now? They can just run it and actually maybe, bring out Chaz Blackwater to kick a field goal and run the timeout and it'd be done. But Jordan Sipe says, no, coach, I got this. And I know you're probably screaming on the sideline saying, that's not what we want to do. What he does, he says, hold my beer, throws a laser one-handed catch in the end zone by his teammate and brought it down. It was quite a thing of nervousness and beauty all at the same time.
But it was a lovely thing. Greg Soto saying that Gerald has the voice of an angel. Will you guys serenade us again this week? Asking for a fanboy. $100. That's all it takes. So, I saw a $5 super check came in, but it came and scrolled away before I could read it.
It did say he hope he doesn't miss any singing from this fantastic duo.
We're only $95 away from another song.
Delro.
We'll even let them pick the song.
Love it. Yeah.
Why do I speak without thinking?
I don't
Anyway, let's get into your defensive player spotlight. Who do you got this week?
So my defensive player spotlight this week may not be a popular vote, but the way we actually watched him play, and he played a lot bigger than maybe his stats would indicate. It's Carolina Skyhawks linebacker Danny Stinson, number 57. Right, the man had 15 tackles and 4 TFLs and 1 pass defense and an interception. And Cam's going to roll the footage so everybody can see exactly what I'm talking about. He plays the line of scrimmage much like a defensive end, right? And he is which is where he's top 5 in the league in TFLs right now. And you're going to see right here on this clip how he just comes right in and just rushes right and gets a tackle for loss and just completely disrupts what is going on, with the offensive line. They didn't have an answer for him at all. Last week with everything that he's doing. And then he can drop back and he can clog up the passing lanes as well, getting right in there. And he's playing deep. He's in the 3rd level of the defense, being able to get back there and have that play type of recognition, right? And here it is. Once again, you're going to see him right here, jump right in there. And that's the thing, play recognition and being able to know what's coming and being able to track the ball and being able to get everything going in there. And you're going to see right here, he's going to have himself quite another play right here where he's going to drop back, similar type play, gets near the 3rd level, and actually picks it off. That's the type of all-star type stuff that he played last week, right? And that's only scratching the surface of, of everything that he did with, this game last week. So look, he is a 3-time all-star, has been playing at an extremely high level throughout his time with Carolina, which is 6 seasons in Carolina, right? His leadership, in my opinion, has inspired the rest of the defense to play at that very same high level. And he was one of the players last season as well that kept that going despite me bashing them every week and talking crap about their defense and everything else. It's guys like this who says, don't listen to the noise. Just come there. We're a lot better than what a lot of people think. He comes in there and he plays at an extremely high level. And it showed when you have 15 tackles, 4 for tackle for losses, you're defending pass on secondary and you're picking the ball off.
Yeah.
You're doing something really well. So congratulations to Danny Stinson. But I must mention as well my honorable mention because it was tough between the two, which is Jay Mart from Nashville, 14 tackles, 5 TFLs, and also with an interception as well. I felt he deserved mentioning because he played really, really well with them getting a win last week.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. And Carolina's going to really need him this week. They go on the road to take on the Fort Worth Toros. Fort Worth, as you know, firsthand, always a prime opponent to go up against. In Carolina, they've already been playing up and down this season, so they're going to need Stinson at his best along with the rest of their players to go and really secure that win. I was going to do an honorable mention because, I always want to try to acknowledge some other people, but you want to know who my honorable mention would have been?
Probably running back Ray Bentley.
Ray Bentley. Yeah, and I thought, don't do that.
You fit it in anyway.
I fit it
You
in
fit
anyway. Whatever. It's my show. I don't care. Anyway, let's talk about the streets are talking. They do a community vote. We've got Eddie Gage. We've got Brett Solberg. They do the Streets Are Talking show. They do the community vote each week. Let the fans vote and pick who they think is the player of the week on offense and defense. And we've matched up sometimes, and then other times not so much. But this week, let's see what we do. And you know what? Jordan Sipe not even in the top 3 in the community. Come on, did you even watch the? It's okay. You can vote for who you want to vote for. Actually, I don't even think he was on the ballot, so I got to talk to Brett about that one. Maybe I got to get on that show and voice. I got to say it with my chest.
Maybe if your partner here just stops bashing Eddie from
that could help. That could help.
You might have some sort of a say about something.
Yeah, having our producer throw his picture up, while you're bashing him too.
That was a thing of beauty. I tell you, it was perfectly timed.
Yeah, let's get into the community vote. So 62 votes were cast, and let's see, there's 62 votes on offense, 56 votes on defense. On offense, the community picked Darius Iniguez with 35.5% of the votes. 22 votes in total. He got number 1. Jason Williams at number 2, and Brett Killian at number 3. I detect bias. So it's like I got to get myself in. Not Jordan Sipe, who came from behind by 2 scores down, 3 touchdowns. Anyway, they can pick who they want. Yeah. Defense. On the defensive side, Josh Farnsey gets the nod with 50% of the votes, 28 in total. Jay Mart, your honorable mention, came in as an honorable mention here as well, and he got 11 votes. And Guy Incognito got some votes as well.
No mention.
No mentions of our guys. Yeah. Wow. So we've got our opinions, and apparently they're wrong. That's cool.
No, we're right.
All right, coming up next, we've got a great game in store, the rematch from last season, Chicago at Minnesota. Chicago, they came into the season with higher expectations than they had in season 23. Halfback Blue Scott was back. Wide receiver reinforcements T. DeQueen and Lyric Da Vinci were brought in. Linebackers DJ Kilgannon and Telemac Scarborough, along with cornerback Melodious Manning, shored up their defense. Heck, even the kicker and punter were brought in free agency. Topher Kiefer and Philip DeField, they came in to help on the special team side. Not to mention, Mike O'Neill brought in as the defensive coordinator on staff. A lot of things were put into place in the offseason to get this team going. They're 0-3, so so far it hasn't worked. 17-point losses in weeks 1 and 2, followed up by an 18-point loss in week 3. So it just has not gone their way. Minnesota, they haven't had the start they're looking for either. They're at 1-2, and this is actually a first for them in franchise history to be at 1-2 after three weeks in. In the previous 5 seasons, including the one where they finished 4-8, you would have needed to complete week 6 before you'd see that second loss hit, and they're already here in week 4 with their second loss. And I've heard people say, well, Minnesota's played really tough opponents, but both of these teams can make that claim. Chicago's opponent records are 5-4. Minnesota's are 5-3, so pretty similar.
Yep.
But to win a championship, you've got to beat the best teams regardless. So for one of these teams, a bad start is going to get even worse tonight. For the other, they'll possibly get things turned around. But will Chicago fall to 0-4 for the second season in a row? Or is Minnesota going to potentially match their entire loss total from all of last season through just 4 weeks? Let's talk about it. What do you got for Chicago?
In Chicago, right? I bashed on Chicago. I did see, Ty in there saying, all right, that's enough of the bashing. But I can't help it. Why? Because when you're playing so bad, it's kind of it's just hard to ignore. Look, and to say that Chicago has struggled is a extremely large understatement, right? I just cannot understand, why they had such a fall when they went to two consecutive seasons where they actually made the playoffs, season 21 and season 22. Yep. And last season they just fell apart. I have no idea what really happened, right? So offensively, they're last in nearly every single category. Yes. And I'm not and it's embarrassingly so, right?
Points per game, passing yards, total offense.
It's just bad. Yeah. And then when they're not, they're actually kind of second to last. If they're not last, they're second to last. They average 7 points a game and have only scored 1 touchdown through 3 games. Yeah. Quarterback type attack only has completed 38% of his passes, which is the worst in the SFL. Look, and I actually thought, and you mentioned it before, and actually your breakdown just I thought bringing Blue Scott back into the fold would make them much better.
Yeah, I saw
right?
that. I'm like, huge.
Team,
they're solid.
Look, and you know what they are? Their run game isn't great either. Like I mentioned, their rushing attack is 24th in the league.
Yeah.
Like something is crazy hit or miss. And defense isn't as bad, but it isn't really good either. I mean, you mentioned everybody that they brought in offensively, getting reinforcements there, and on the defense,
special teams.
right? But look, they struggle to stop the run. You bring in guys like Kelly Mack Scarborough in there, who is an extremely really good linebacker, right? And everywhere he's played, they're struggling to stop the run. They're allowing a league worst 228 yards per game to their opponents and are allowing 24 points a game as well. And when you're only scoring 7 points a game, you definitely cannot win with allowing 24 points a game as well.
The math don't math.
No, it don't math. That's 17 points you got to make up from somewhere, and they're just not doing. I really do think they need a major philosophy change is needed across the board, offensively and defensively. Look, or they will continue to struggle. Look, and because their last 15 games have not been good. Yeah, they've won some and everything else, and they beat and they did some upsets, but you have to play consistently. They have not been playing consistently. When they play good, they turn around and end up playing bad. So, look, the last 15 games has been terrible, which is last season and this season. But they got to turn something around.
Yeah, and I even see Mike O'Neill in the chat now saying that's because our opponents are cantoning us. I think he means they're just running all over him, but stop it then. You know, I mean, if I'm the coach of the other team and a team says, well, you're just running all over us, I'm going to do it till you stop me.
Or you can do the chat roll, and if you can't beat them, join them. Like,
you could do that too. So, but let's talk about Minnesota now, because they're kind of a confusing team as well. You know, they brought me to the brink of death in the semifinals when I thought my heart was going to pound through my chest, and we barely won in a last-second field goal in overtime. But then in week one, the Aztecs came out and pretty well just stomped them, and Minnesota hasn't quite looked the same.
Yeah, look, and you guys beat them, and they didn't look anything like what got them to back-to-back semifinals. Then week two, the rebound and found some of that form that they had last season. And won pretty convincingly, right?
Yep.
And then they turn around, and then they get beat really bad by a Baltimore team who was good, which I do think that if this was last season, I do think Minnesota kind of hangs with them.
Yes.
Look, they just haven't performed well at all on both sides of the ball. Reigning MVP quarterback Johnny Reno has not performed like his usual self.
He's not even in the consideration for all-star voting currently.
Well, when you have 6 interceptions, only 2 touchdowns, you better not be in any consideration for anything at all.
Fair.
Look, and the run game, though, has been serviceable, but it hasn't been enough to generate the points that they need to win games. They're averaging 12 points a game. Averaging 12 points a game. When the defense is allowing 27 points a game.
The math's not going to math there either.
It's not mathing. They're both these teams have a huge discrepancy by 2 scores, right? Look, and I said it in week 2 at the Matt Willson Kickoff show that they need to dance with the girl that brought them to the dance because you want to know why? She's loyal and she never lets you down. Stop playing around with other broads and just go back to what has worked for you. Look, I think the Legend just need to remember what they need to do, right, and not reinvent the wheel because we already know what's been successful. Like, why not turn it back? Like, look, and it could be a situation where, hey, look, maybe teams are figuring them out, but I just can't see it because they've always kind of been ahead. They've ball control, and they would literally smother teams with their offense, ball control. Going there, they were a team that was amazing to watch last season because
last several seasons.
Yeah, and they were always in a 3rd and short. When it was a 3rd down, it was more than likely short, probably 70 to 80% of the time. And guess what happened? And that got them the win. If you're 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 2, you're going to pick that up if you got Colin Hart running for you, right? So, and that's what they've done in the past. And defensively, they were really strong as well. Being able to, get off the field 3rd down and put that offense back out there to eat up all that clock. So they need to realize what they have and kind of turn back the clock a little bit to make sure that they are the team that everybody thinks they are, but they lose tonight. And I do think if Chicago is going to win against a tough team, this is the week that it can happen.
I mean, it happened last season, right? I don't think anybody gave them a shot last season when they faced Minnesota because Minnesota was playing so well and Chicago was not playing that well. And I watched that game because I had a little bit of vested interest in Minnesota losing. Sorry, Robert. It is what it is. But and Chicago came out swinging, and they got the win. So can they surprise again? Like I said, for these two teams tonight, one of them is going to have a bad start, get even worse. The other one's going to finally get a little bit of a nudge in the right direction. We'll find out what happens with that game in just about 10 minutes time when that one gets kicked off. But first, let's go over our picks for week 4. Boy, were we just terrible last week. We picked 11 games, and we picked a lot of games different. So I thought, well, we're going to see some movement in our rankings this week. But, I'm 19-13, and you're 20-12. So you're still just one game ahead of me after both of us got 6 right and 5 wrong.
Week is what we
yeah,
did.
and it's like you'd see that and you'd think, wow, they must all pick the same teams. Nah, we picked different teams, and we just happened to pick so bad that I got 6 right, you got 6 right, we both got 5 wrong. What? I don't know. It just goes to show we don't have a clue what we're talking about. We're just here to entertain. We should just have spent the last 40 minutes just singing. We could have sang Turn Back Time, and we could have been singing that one to Minnesota and telling them, this is what you got to do with your game plan. You got to turn. I'm not. We're still $95 away. I ain't singing anything.
And we can change up the lyrics, instead of find their way,
Yeah. But first, we're gonna get into our picks. Time's a ticking, Gerald. Los Angeles at DC. Who do you got?
I got DC. Why? Because I think Los Angeles is finding something. They got the first win last week, right? Which I picked correctly, by the way. But DC is extremely strong. I know, but look, DC is extremely strong, and I just think they riding them dragons, and they're just mowing people down, setting everything on fire. So I do think DC takes it at home.
I think Los Angeles is going to have a good season this season. I know it hasn't worked out quite yet for them. I think it continues to not work out for them this week. I do think they get things turned around later on in the season. Not this week. DC is going to get the win, I believe. Nashville at Arizona.
I got to go with Eddie Gade. He's not on the field to get any kind of pick six, but I do think that maybe his defense does. And I do think they're playing at home, and I do think they beat Nashville because I think Nashville's a team that's going to struggle to score points. What Eddie does, he puts together a solid defense, and his offense will score points. They won't go stagnant. So he's able to do that because he has the talent, behind it, especially on offense with, the wide receivers they have. They have, Ashley Jackson. They got, running backs of, Moses, and they also got
Brad Jones.
Yeah, him too. So it's like that. So I think they get back all together, and I think they rebound, and I think this is going to be the start of something good for Atlanta. Not Atlanta.
Arizona.
The mother bugs.
One of them. Yeah.
They bugs.
They're all insects. Nashville's just struggling this season. I'm not sure that they're going to get things going quite yet, especially not this week. Arizona, I think, gets the win. This one was a tough one for me, and looks like we may have picked different on this one. Washington at Sin City. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think I am going with Sin City. Look, I love what Washington has done. They got my boy, Tommy Utah out there doing good things, right? He had
number one QBR in the league right now.
He had a really, really good game last week. No picks, 2 touchdowns. But the way Sin City played last week at home, I think they're not looking to reinvent the wheel for themselves, and I do think they are going to come away with it. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think they're going to come away with the win.
Robert Thump told me last week when I picked against Washington, he said, keep doubting us, and then he came out and won the game. I'm done doubting him. Washington, I think, gets the win over Sin City. I think last week was an aberration. You're still full of doubt.
Full of doubt.
Charleston at Florida.
So, look, Charleston has not looked like the same team since losing the Lake Man and some of their other players and stuff like that. I do think Florida wins it, and I do think Florida wins it convincingly.
Yeah.
They took you guys down to the wire.
They did.
And it's not an easy task to do because I'm a guy who's seen a lot of Mexico City games. I know with some of the things going behind the scenes and everything else. I know the work that they do, and I know how strong your team is. I told you mid-season last season, you guys were extremely strong, and that you guys had a championship type vibe, and a team like Florida knows how to play, and I do think they actually beat Charleston convincingly.
I agree. I think Florida's going to get the win. I think they'll rebound from last week, and I think they'll do so convincingly. So Albuquerque at Queen City. Who do you got?
So Queen City has not looked like they did the first couple of weeks of the season.
It's a rough week last week.
And they actually just kind of ran into it. They just look out of sorts. I know they are playing at home, and Albuquerque is not known for winning on the road, but what they did, they won on the road recently, and it was not even close. They dominated, and I do think they go again on the road. They go to Buffalo, and they beat Queen City and Buffalo.
You know I love my Buffalo teams. But you gotta score points, guys. You gotta score points, and you just didn't last week. Albuquerque has been doing nothing but scoring points. I gotta give them the nod. Albuquerque gets the win. Mexico City at Houston.
And here's
Who
the
who you got in this one?
here's the one where
I'm sorry, am I invading your space?
yes, you are.
Oh, my
It's
apologies.
very intimidating from a
My
championship coach.
my apologies.
I don't know nothing about championship coaches, and for me, but
Go ahead, make your
I
pick. I
I
don't
have
judge.
to go with Houston here. Why? Because this is the thing. I really do think that Houston has something pretty good going on.
They
And
do.
what Houston does traditionally is play you guys tough.
They do.
And what they do, they're playing at home. They play you guys tough. They can put up points. And that's the thing I think is going to be important here. Not many teams can put up a lot of points against you guys, but Houston seems like one of those teams that just knows how to do it. I think since they've been at home and everything else, Mexico City will suffer their first loss of the season. Now, I'm a guy who says, hey, look, I don't want to pick against the champion until they lose, but I do think this is the game. I'm trying to
Wrap
get
it up.
more up. So Houston takes it. Blake Craves and the Lake Man.
Oh, that's why. I forgot your son's on the team now. Anyway, Aztecs will get the win because the Aztecs will get the win. Fox Highwind says I'm insufferable. He's not wrong. Denver at Lexington.
All right, so I got to go with Denver. Why? Because we actually, whenever we, broke this game down a little bit, Denver has been the most consistent, right? They didn't
Across
have no
the board.
ebbs and flows. They're doing really good. Don't turn the ball over a whole lot. And Lexington, they just had such a fall down, and it was bad. They didn't look nothing like what they were a couple weeks before. Denver is more consistent. I think they have now their coach in place. No more dumpster diving because they found what they're looking for. Denver takes it in Lexington.
I agree. I think Denver's going to get the win. When I look at matchups, I look at the teams as a whole and how their team performs statistically in pretty much every category. Shout out to Mark Lopez for throwing that information together for us and the broadcast team each week. And when you look at them side by side and you highlight who's out in front in green, the Denver column was just green down the whole list in darn near every category. I just think it's going to be too much for Lexington until they can get that turned around a bit. I think Denver gets that win. Vancouver at Atlanta.
So this was one of the tougher games for me to pick, right? Because Vancouver had a great game last week.
Huge game.
But they played against one of the worst teams in the
Terrible
league,
team.
in my opinion. So I don't think it's really indicative of how good that they are. But I do think, I'm going with the bugs in this one as well, right? I said the only good bug is a dead bug. But guess what? They're still alive right now. I do think Atlanta wins it at home, inviting the Legion into the hive, and they do. They do, and Grandpa Shine's going to make things happen.
He might make things happen, but Vancouver looked so impressive last week. I know it was against a bad team. If you're playing against a bad team, and I feel bad for kind of just like totally trashing Oklahoma City, but it is what it is. If you play bad, or if you play good against a bad team, that's what you're supposed to do.
Correct.
If you play outstanding against a bad team, I think it means that you're just still a good team. And I think Vancouver is a really good team. I think they're bouncing back from their down season last season. I think they're going to stick it to Atlanta in their own house. Vancouver gets the win. Baltimore at Pittsburgh.
Everybody knows that I'm a Pittsburgh fan because I call Louisiana North, but they just have not had the right type of thing with the cast that they assembled. I really do think they're gonna lose this one at home to Baltimore. Baltimore is just way too strong of a team.
I agree. I think Baltimore is going to get the win over Pittsburgh until they can convince us that they can win football games even at home. When you're playing against a really tough opponent like Baltimore, I can't side on Pittsburgh's side. Baltimore, I think, gets the win. And the Monday Night Spectacular. By the way, Fox, you said I was insufferable. That's why I switched my pick from Atlanta to Vancouver. Kidding it. I actually had Vancouver already picked. Okay. Monday Night Spectacular, Carolina at Fort Worth.
So I'm going with Fort Worth, not because I hate Carolina, but I don't. I love them. They know I love them. But it's like they didn't look really good last week, right? And it kind of bothered me. And Fort Worth, I think, is a little bit more well put together. I still think Carolina's trying to find themselves a bit. So I got to take Fort Worth at home.
Carolina at Fort Worth. I got to go with Fort Worth as well. Carolina, they've just, like you said, they've been up, they've been down. Fort Worth is a team that's always pretty consistent all the time. Always gives us a run for our money, and the whole South Division as a whole. I think Fort Worth will get the win in this one. So that's our picks, and that's all the time that we've got. So thank you for joining us for the Matt Willson SFL Kickoff Show Week 4. We've got a game right around the corner here. Looking forward to it. Chicago at Minnesota just seconds away, and we'll get this one started. How's it going to turn out? As Matt Willson would say, there's only one way to find out, and that's on the field. We will see you there. Stay with us.